Murderers, fashion designers, budgets, and weed, all things we've been talking about all week. This is the Weekend Readout. Hey everybody, I'm Drexel and welcome to the very first episode of the Weekend Readout, the show that recaps important stories in politics, pop culture, and anything else we should have been paying attention to from the week. So, let's read it out. HBO debuted its 6-part docu-series, The Jinx, this week about the life and deaths of real estate mogul Robert Durst. The series chronicles Durst's life, marriages, arrests, trials, and everything you can think of. For all you serial podcast fans, this is going to be the story to watch. Now, follow me for just a second. So in 1982, Robert Durst's first wife, Kathleen McCormick, goes missing after Durst was pressured to move back to New York by his real estate mogul father. Now, nothing was found in that case, and police then reopened the case years later in 2000. That same year, a friend of Robert, Susan Berman, who allegedly had knowledge of Kathy's disappearance, was also found murdered execution style. Durst was questioned with that murder, but was not charged, so then he moves to Texas, dressed as a mute woman to avoid any further questioning. Then the next year in 2001, he was arrested for allegedly killing his next-door neighbor after finding evidence all through his rental car by the police. During that case, he used his Asperger's syndrome diagnosis as a defense, and the jury acquitted him. Now, many things happened between 2001 and 2006, arrests, parole, jail time, but nothing, I can tell you, prepared the world for this.
What the hell are you doing? Kill them all, of course.
How do you not realize your microphone is on while saying some pretty incriminating things? I mean, listen, I know the guy is 70 years old, but the man evaded police for this long, I don't think he was a dummy. Durst was arrested last week by the FBI and charged with first-degree murder for the killings. Now, we haven't seen a trial like this since the O.J. Simpson case back in the 90s, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting case to watch. Maybe Durst to claim affluenza and get away with it all over again. Speaking of the privilege, this week fashion designers Dolce Gabbana sent a shockwave through the fashion world and their supporters by claiming that they felt that children do better under traditional mother and father families, and that children who come from in vitro fertilization procedures were chemical children from a rented uterus chosen from a semen-selected catalog. You can say that 3 times fast. Maybe they're the ones a little imbalanced. Now, in my blog this week, I talked about how it is difficult to be upset at other people's opinions. People like Dolce & Gabbana, who come from traditional Italian families, that's what they grew up with. That's what they really know. However, we can be upset at the fact that their opinions are unsupported by the facts. Families around this country raise children in many ways nowadays. In 2015, there were a record number of single parents raising kids, whether from divorce, death, circumstance, and these kids turn out pretty good. The question I and people always ask, and you should be asking, is why are children of same-sex parents who love them any different than parents of divorce who love them? Where are Dolce and Gabbana and the religious right when divorced parents are raising kids alone and then they don't get remarried? Maybe they don't think that has an effect on kids. Then there's the IVF comment, which is so off the wall that I'm surprised they even let Panorama print it. Last year alone, a record 165,000 babies were born through in vitro fertilization, and I don't see or hear about any chemically unbalanced kids walking around the country who came from that procedure. Did they just forget about all the other parents who have no choice but to have a child? Like that? Now, Elton John this week called for a boycott and then was caught the next day carrying around one of their bags, and then other celebrities have spoken out against the duo's remarks. I don't think this will be the end of the fashion house, but it certainly will start to make people think twice about supporting them. But then again, only a handful of people can afford their bags or clothes. I know I can't. Get on the right side, D&G. Check out my blog for more thoughts on that. Okay, so every year or every month for some people, we have to create a spending budget to get us through our daily lives. Every year, Congress, our power of the purse branch, is tasked with passing legislation to keep the government running for the next year. In recent years, Congress has only been able to pass what we call continuing resolution, which are basically month-to-month band-aids to keep our government agencies open. Since the Republicans are in the majority now, controlling Congress, they've got the exciting task of coming up with a budget that fits the needs of the country and of our government agencies. Now, the GOP platform is all about fiscal responsibility and cutting out wasteful spending. So the new budget plan the House of Representatives released this week by Representative Tom Price of Georgia focuses on key areas where they believe will keep the country economically prosperous. Take a look at this. The Republican budget plan plans to expand opportunity by growing the economy, provide our troops the training, compensation, and support they need, a repeal of Obamacare to clear the way for patient-centered reform, and secure seniors' retirement by strengthening Medicare and other vital programs. Now, what does that mean for America? Well, for starters, if the GOP plan gets passed, which the president will likely veto, it would strip the 16 million Americans who signed up under the Obamacare for their health care without an alternative because the GOP hasn't offered one to replace it. It will cut financial aid packages for millions of students who are in or about to go to college, and will replace the current Medicare system for our seniors with a voucher system. Now, vouchers may work for schools, but it won't work for our seniors. This plan claims to create jobs through long overdue tax reform, which basically means that will give millions of tax breaks to what they call job creators, or the millionaires who won't use their tax breaks in the way they're supposed to anyway, and actually add jobs to their payroll. It also asks for additional defense spending, which the Defense Department hasn't asked for, primarily for contracts for fighter jets, test submarines, and military equipment that our armed forces will never use. So is that what America really asked for during the midterm elections last year? I don't think that's what middle America was thinking when they swept this majority into power. And finally, in today's readout, this week, President Obama, speaking to Vice News, had a message for us millennials. Care more about jobs, war, and peace, and less about weed. Now, it was suggested in the interview that young people would view legalizing marijuana as a top issue when considering the president's legacy and who would be our next president. Now, I never understood single-issue voters, and legalizing weed definitely shouldn't be at the top of anyone's list. The Justice Department has already taken steps to curb arrests and busts of weed dispensaries. Less and less young people are going to jail for having weed on them, so you would think that people would have other bigger issues to worry about. Like the president said, we should be worried more about climate change, war and peace, jobs, and the economy, and weed should be way at the bottom of our priorities. You know, like you got no job, you probably got no weed. Now, I have a feeling the president and future Attorney General Loretta Lynch, if she ever gets confirmed, will work tirelessly to decriminalize marijuana. They probably won't legalize it nationally, but in both cases, I highly doubt it's at the top of the president's agenda. And he's right. We do worry about frivolous stuff daily. Now, I understand that our everyday lives may be difficult and we want to break from the real world, but not focusing on the things that matter eventually will make us a complacent nation. That's why we have record low numbers in voter turnouts, and we never have the representation in Washington that we deserve. Now, a lot of things happened throughout this week that you might have missed, and I want to make sure that you know all about them in this week's Not to Mention. St. Patrick's Day was this week. Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch still hasn't been confirmed, making her the longest AG nominee in limbo. Congressman Schock resigned after allegations of wasteful spending. Benjamin Netanyahu was reelected for his fourth term as Israeli prime minister. The Donald Trump announced he's setting up yet another presidential exploratory committee. Raven Simone co-hosted The View this week, defending remarks made by a Latino newsmaker who compared First Lady Michelle Obama's looks to characters from Planet of the Apes. And of course, NCAA March Madness starting this week. Shout out to my NC State Wolfpack for their win over LSU. Let's see if they can knock out number 1 seed Villanova to make the Sweet 16. Check out all of those stories in the links below. Now, this is the first episode of the Weekend Readout. Things are going to change every week until the show is exactly the way it's supposed to be. What won't change is me working to make sure that you stay informed about the stories that will truly make an impact on our lives or interest pieces that you should be watching out for. Now, I can't wait to have you join the conversation with me every week and about everything that I discuss. You can tweet at me at Drexel Heard, or use the hashtag Weekend Readout, or comment below with your thoughts on any topic from the show. Who knows, I might just reach out to you and ask you to join me one day. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Weekend Readout, and check out my blog, thereadout365.com, and I'll see you next week. Did you like that episode? Make sure to share with your friends, family, neighbors, all across social media. Don't forget to subscribe and join me here every Saturday right here on The Weekend Readout.